Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Dalton. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Robotify, and I'm here with my other co-founder.
Hello, my name is Evan Darcy. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Robotify.
And so it's come to our attention, a couple of people asking us to tell the story of Robotify and why we started. And I think, we certainly feel that part of the reason why we feel so strongly about the mission and why we feel that we know our customer better than anyone else is because we kind of were our customer just a couple of years ago. And so just kind of sit back and tell the story about, where this started. It's obviously turned into something much bigger than what we could have envisaged. And look, it's great to be able to sit here today and talk about the story. So I think it all started probably when you go way back in, I think, the first class of the first day of school.
First day of high school.
Yeah, in high school. And myself and Evan sat next to each other in science and just hit it off, became very good friends. And to spare details, 4 years later, when we were, I think, around 15 or 16, we decided that we wanted to start a business together. Probably a little bit unusual, and just started kind of coming up with these ideas. And I think at the time, I can't remember, you were working in a sweet shop locally.
I was working in a sweet shop, and I worked in a bar for some time as well.
Yeah.
And then, eventually that's a little bit further down the timeline, but eventually started working full time for Robotify.
Absolutely. And then so around then, 15, 16, really didn't know what to do, didn't have much money, and just decided, that so I had started learning how to code. And I always tell people, like, I was really creative as a child, but could never play music, could never draw, really, really bad with all that kind of traditional creative stuff. And then I remember when I was younger, started learning how to code, making websites, and used to do a class after school. One of our teachers used to put it on, maybe at the age of 13 or 14. And when I started making websites and coding, it was the first time that I felt that, this was something that I could do and be creative. And it really gave me an amazing feeling to be able to build something with my imagination and it to not look so terrible. So I knew about coding and told Evan about it. So, we really, wanted to start a business in anything. And I think we felt passionate about the coding thing because when we used to do the classes after school, just with our teachers, there'd be like 3 people every week who'd show up, and there was, 600, 700 kids in this school. And so we realized, okay, this is a big problem. Pretty sure coding is going to be the future, and yet nobody's engaging with it. So we started looking for ways to do that. And that's when I suppose we both came up with the idea of, the initial idea of Robotify. If you remember, in the coffee shop that time, we were looking at teaching kids about websites. We kind of figured websites were great, but like they weren't that engaging. And I think it catered to a certain type of student. But for us, we wanted to reach as many people as possible, whether it's the sporty ones, the arty ones, whatever it might be. We wanted to reach out to every kid and get them excited about what coding has to offer. So I spoke with the websites. We started doing some tests and we figured that wasn't the way, but we still wanted to teach kids how to code in a fun way. And then I suppose you kind of started thinking about
and then we discovered that obviously, as you said, HTML and CSS can be quite repetitive. You ended up with thousands of lines of code in some instances, and it does not suit everybody, as we quickly realized, not even ourselves, I would say. To some degree. But yeah, we had discovered at the time it was sort of kind of an emerging trend, I suppose, at that particular time, where companies were starting to release educational robotics tools and products. And there was some early stage startups at the time who had been launched on Kickstarter and that kind of thing. But after reading into that some more, I think we realized that makes total sense. It's like it's a physical manifestation of something that's by its very nature not physical and complicated, which is software programming. So robotics are a fantastic way to kind of bring software into reality and to kind of make that more tangible, I think is the word that I'm looking for. So we started with that, and at the time I could barely write an email, but for whatever reason, we decided that we were going to undertake creating a educational hardware robotics company. And we started out, I think it was
the classes in the school.
Yeah, we started out with classes in our school, and we were teaching kids how to program using Arduino, and we would show them how to use some ultrasonic sensors, and we showed them how to drive servo motors and that kind of thing. And we'd do like a lesson by lesson over a 8-week basis.
I think it was, yeah. And I was, remember the first time we did it, where we went around each classroom with one of these robots that we'd scrape together, and definitely a fire hazard as well, but we basically go around to the classrooms and we bring these robots around, get these kids excited. We had like 40 or 50 kids signed up, versus the 3 kids that were doing the free after school coding courses.
We had no money to start with.
We had no money.
So that was the goal, was that we had no money to start with. Each of these robots, I think it costed about €20, something along those, something around that, to order all the actual
from
parts
Alibaba
and components from AliExpress.
Yeah.
And they were going to take a month to get here. So we went around to all of the first year schools in our secondary school or high school.
Yeah.
And we had a pre-built robot that I had made for the very first time ever using some kind of tutorial online.
Yeah.
And I showed them the robot. It was a simple obstacle avoidance robot. So it would go around, and if you put your hand in front of it, or if you put your foot in front of it, it would, just turn left and avoid the obstacle and keep driving then once there was no obstacle in the way. Yeah. But the kids loved it.
Yeah.
We got them to all sign up.
Well, it was,
we got a deposit from
thing,
them,
right?
So now we did have, so we got 40 kids to sign up, whatever it was. I think that was about right.
Yeah.
And they all paid us a €20 deposit, which now gave us money to actually order the parts.
It was a deposit.
It was a deposit, a non-refundable deposit.
No, yeah,
down payment.
Exactly.
It's a down payment, a 20% down payment on the course overall. We ordered the parts in from China, and in a month's time, we were able to actually start the course then.
And again, if we didn't, if the parts didn't show up, we weren't doing robotics in week 1. That was that was just the way it was.
That's just the way it was.
Luckily, they showed up with like a day's notice, and we ran the course. But what was incredible to see, we'd never done this before. We weren't educated. We just had an idea about what we wanted to do, and we did it. And the amazing thing was, when you saw the kids learning how to code, and then seeing the result of their code come to life in the form of a robot, it was just like that.
Yeah.
It was just that spark moment. And, it's actually, I almost get goosebumps when I think of it now, the amount of kids that got engaged with the robotics because of how physical it was compared to obviously the idea of websites, which is abstract. So that was our kind of first journey. That's where we kind of started. And then from there, it became something much bigger. We kept working at it. We kept working hard. And I suppose we had decided, right, we're going to be Ireland's first educational robotics company. We're going to take on the world. We're going to build a hardware device with no money, with no education, and we're going to go and do this together. So we both kind of kept the business going. Our final couple of years of high school, we went on to university together and went to college. Turns out then in the end, whereas I would have started as the techie guy, and Evan would have been the business, we swapped, and Evan did mechatronics in DCU. I did business in Dublin City University. And we kind of just had this great, I suppose, this great feeling about the business that we were going to do something different. And so we built a boxed product called Robotify Alpha. And this was kind of scary for us. We spent most of our time on packaging and making it look really good. Had these incredible, I think it was
spent weeks going back and forth between suppliers in China trying to get the right dimensions for that foam cutouts.
Exactly. And eventually got it, I think, very inspired, funny enough, by the way Apple packaged their products, which is ironic considering we're going to speak to Steve Wozniak over the course of this event, which is fantastic. So obviously when we did that, we went with it. And I remember this day, we got coverage in our national newspaper. I think it was the Irish Times, that, these students are starting a business. And we had these box products all, prettied up on our website, really beautiful. We ordered in, basically got free sample units, and it looked great, did our photo shoots, had a Shopify store. And the night after the article, or the morning that the article went live, we woke up and there was like 20 orders on our website. And all of a sudden the anxiety hit. we actually have to deliver these units to real paying customers. So after the kind of panic moment, when we got the orders in, we said, okay, down to business. We couldn't wait too long to get our boxes in because we hadn't pre-ordered because we had no money. So we got these boxes from IKEA, I think it was, and we literally slapped a sticker on it, It's a bit of false advertising going on, but luckily all the early customers were nice about it. And we took them to the customers, hand delivered them one by one. A friend of ours from college, we literally had 20 robots in the boot. I drove around Dublin, hand delivering units.
You also had to, well, I had to make every circuit board from scratch and 3D print every single plastic component on a $200 DIY 3D printer.
Yeah, which was fun.
Yeah.
So when that happened, so that was kind of phase one of business. And you know what? That gave us an appreciation for the fact that robots are an incredible way to teach kids how to code. And it also gave us an appreciation as we got older and we got more mature that this wasn't the be all and end all of everything.
No.
You know, robots are amazing, but it works for only a certain amount of individuals. And so as we got more mature, we started to look at the marketplace. And what we realized was that teachers love robots, kids absolutely love robots. But in many scenarios, it was very, very difficult to implement those programs at scale. So, you know, you're looking at a school of 500 kids. You know, it's very hard to get one-to-one access to $200 educational robots or even $80 educational robots, especially with budgets being so stretched in K-12 education just across the world. And so what we wanted to do was to take the best that robotics had to offer in terms of the educational experience, but to turn that into something that was cost effective, that was scalable, and that was equitable for kids of all different backgrounds, no matter what the budget of the school district
and accessible was. Too, because I mean, these robots, you know, they're only accessible during school hours, and maybe some schools let the kids take them home, but I think
like
that's the exception, not the rule, I think.
Exactly. So, you know, we've never been a proponent of removing robotics, but we started to realize that there was some things under the skin that we just wanted to try and smooth out, because we saw what could be with robotics, and we just wanted to try and make some of those issues a little bit easier to navigate for the teacher so that they could blend physical hardware with virtual.
Yeah.
And that's where we went. And we kind of, rather than try and invent a robot that was cheaper, more accessible, more efficient, we decided, okay, let's flip it on its head. And we built software to allow people to control robots remotely.
Mm-hmm.
The idea behind that being that if we could build a software that allowed people to access robots as a service, then people would never have to buy robots, and they could code them via the power of the internet. Yep. And have a webcam that would stream the results of the code.
Yep.
Pretty wacky idea. Pretty, you know, something that
it was
a big
wacky.
Idea. It was.
I mean, it still is a bit wacky.
It is, definitely. And, you know, we did it. And we executed and we spent 11 months like building a robot farm.
Probably too long.
Probably.
I think we'd probably be able to, anyway, execute that probably in a shorter amount of time these days.
Absolutely. But I remember, you know, taking the robot that we built in Robotify, you know, Alpha,
mm-hmm.
in our office that we got for free. It's this old building, this old kind of prefab building that used to be occupied by the government of Ireland.
Yeah.
And we basically tried to use a bit of charm. I think it worked. We got it for free. Now, I mean, you'd want to pay someone to take that off your hands. So I think us getting it for free was a good deal for the landlord. But it was, you know, absolute, you know, wreck of a place. We went in, we tore up the floorboards, we laid out 1 by 1 meter pods.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is in feet for any of the American audience.
Who knows?
Yeah, but basically we put these robots in a box, which is really what it was. We
painted
were literally
concrete.
Yeah, concrete was painted gray. The robots were orange. It lifted up, and we had these cameras hoisted above the pod.
We got little, I don't even know what they were. There was some kind of
IP phone or something.
I'm talking about the actual wires. So we strung these really tightly, these metal wires. We'd string 2 beside each other the whole width across this large room.
Yeah.
And we would balance the cheapest Android phones that we could buy, that money can buy. There's apps that, you know, lets you convert an Android phone into an IP camera. So you just go to an IP address and you can see a real-time camera feed. And the latency is pretty low.
Yeah.
As long as you've got semi-decent Wi-Fi speed. So yeah, there's these 2 wires strung the whole way across. And we've got an Android phone balanced every 2 meters, every meter or 2 meters.
Yeah.
And we would have to charge those phones every single, they would only last for 2 hours on their battery life. We'd have to charge those, and we'd have to charge about 60 lithium ion batteries. They would be all over the floor. And if you even touch this wire, all 6 phones. We had them in little tiny plastic cases, and they're still working to this day.
Well, and then we put that all together, and what you have is, robots as a service.
Yep.
So instead of the kids buying a physical unit, or the teachers, they rented it. And so we split up the day into slots of 30 minutes. And, I think we had 48 slots per day. And if we have 48 slots per robot per day, the numbers start to work really well.
Mm-hmm.
Until we realized,
all theory.
Yeah, right. No, but we tested it. And the main thing was, can we get this same experience as the classroom?
Yes.
And get that same feeling?
That was the goal at the end of the day.
I think it's safe to say then, what we were able to reproduce was special. When you had the kids in the classroom control the robot in our office, it might have been 5 kilometers, it might have been 500 kilometers away. Basically, what was phenomenal to see was when they ran their code on our web platform and they saw the remote robot move using the webcam, it was, again, that click.
You still got that connection.
So what was special about that? Well, there was definitely flaws in the business model. It was like, okay, wow, we can get that same feeling if it's real enough to the student. And I think much of that is to do with the kids these days that are growing up with digital experiences, like getting used to iPads, playing games like Minecraft, Roblox, whatever it is, to be able to understand that, even though this is in front of me, it's still real.
Mm-hmm.
So we went off, and remember this trip we went on to the US, we went over to Maker Faire, and we brought this technology with us. We brought a pod. It was actually one of the first ideas of RoboJoule, which is the kind of robot wars. It was really, really exciting. And everyone loved it, to be honest with you.
They loved it because there was these 2 ginormous robots that had lasers on them that would shoot each other, and they would ram them into each other. So that's probably most of the reason people loved it.
Completely remotely, all online,
Yeah.
with the camera technology on board. And we had this again, very little money, had this tiny little stall. We hadn't raised any capital at that point. I think we spent most of our last pennies on this trip to America. Yep. First time going over, didn't have any really expectations, and 4 guys who, actually, so myself, Evan, and a couple of two of our friends who subsequently are actually a big part of the team now as well. So we went over there, and we had this tiniest stand that money could buy us at Maker Faire in New York, and literally so busy, so much footfall. We had an Irish flag up next to us. I think that probably helped. And what we realized was amazing. People loved this. Customers love it. Teachers loved it. Makers loved it. We loved it. And then we went back to Dublin, and we had all these requests for school districts looking to purchase it. It was something unique, until we realized a big flaw in the business model. We had to say no to any orders because we had 30 robots, right? And there was just no way that all those robots were going to be, available at the times the users wanted them, because we realized we'd solved the cost thing because we could provide access to robots for low cost. We thought we'd solved the access thing. We definitely solved the equitable thing, and kind of that accessibility thing was the big blocker, because we realized 90% of our customers wanted at 10% at a time.
Yeah.
So we would have had to have 500 or 600 robots.
It just becomes logistical.
And then the speed slows down, so your robots don't move as quick remotely, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So what do we do? And I suppose that brings us to the final stage of our scaling story, which is, sitting in front of you guys today and talking to you about where we started and where we come from. And one day Evan came in, we used to have to charge these robots. It was a challenge at the best of times.
I think that the main, I've heard somebody mention before that, they'll always give a lazy person the hardest job to do, because that lazy person is going to find the most efficient way and the easiest way to solve that problem. I think that probably stems, that's probably the stem of how we came to our solution, because we were coming in on the weekends. We'd have to come in very early in the morning. We'd have to come in and we'd have to charge, manually remove 50 lithium ion batteries and charge them. And we'd have to charge up all these phones, and on every single phone, we'd have to then open up the app, make sure it's streaming, make sure all the robots are receiving and transmitting data, and that the phones are actually all online. And then once that's all started, when a class actually joins, or when a group of students joins to control these robots, Adam and I would be there on the weekends, and we would get messages saying Robot 6 is down.
Yeah.
And we'd have to go over to Robot 6, which is probably stuck on a wall or something, or switch it off, switch it back on again.
Yeah.
And we did it over and over and over again, and it was just exhausting.
And we got lucky because it turned out for the customer as well, they had to book their time on the network. You know, it was a bit of a logistical challenge getting everyone on at the same time. And if you missed your slot, you missed your booking. And you couldn't actually use it. And I think, as Evan alludes to, I think good businesses are born out of frustration a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was the frustration with the lack of access, even just the effort of having
running
to
around like
run
headless
that,
chickens.
As well. And it turned out great in the end for everyone, because we started to realize actually we'd solved this problem, we'd solved that problem, but we need to think of a new way to do this. And from that was born the idea of Robotify's virtual simulation engine. And from there to turn in, obviously being a hardware company to start, I think that served us so well. So here's, two 16-year-olds starting a business, and now move forward, we're 21, 22, trying to build one of the world's, biggest simulation engines in browser to try and recreate all the experience of the robot farm, of the physical robot, of any robot in the world, whether that's the Mars rover or an underwater ROV to explore shipwrecks. That's what we wanted to do virtually, and tested it again once we had it. And the kids, so we originally tested it trying to recreate the robot farm. We had this 2D robot that used to move around an image. And that was our first simulator. And the kids that did the course didn't notice the difference between that and the physical.
Right, because at the time they were moving a little orange robot around a gray tile.
Exactly.
And it was pretty easy to just reproduce that by taking a picture of the robot and taking a picture of the background and overlaying the two.
100%.
So there was no difference, and the quality of the webcam was low enough so that kids couldn't tell the difference between our simulator until it started driving off the screen.
Well, absolutely, that was fun, and I think so. We stopped obviously lying to the students and the teachers, and we just said, let's commit to this, right? There's nothing else out there for this type of thing, and let's just go and run with it. Because to have the physical, some great companies over the course of next week going to speak around physical robotics. But to have the virtual version is such a big gap for a lot of teachers. And so that's what we've done. We've tried to make coding robotics accessible for kids and easy for teachers to implement.
Absolutely.
And now we're providing access to some of the world's best robotics in a virtual sense from a browser. So accessible anywhere in a cost-effective, scalable, and equitable way. And I suppose to be able to sit back today to tell that story is really nice, because through that we've been able to partner with some wonderful people, and namely just recently we announced a partnership with Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple and the founder of WozEd, which is an amazing education company teaching kids in the US around STEM and getting kids into STEM careers. So to be able to, from when we started trying to build boxes like Apple to being with the co-founder of Apple and a legend in Steve Wozniak, is not only a nice moment from a business perspective, but from a personal perspective is a really kind of touching moment for Evan and I, considering where we started in the classrooms of St. Paul's in Raheny in Dublin, Ireland, to be able to be here talking to this crowd today and being able to reach out to our teachers and our users in over 100 different countries, and to be able to just continue to try and produce the best experiences possible and teach as many kids as possible how to code. So I think that's the story. Our team is 20 big across multiple different continents, and we're here, and the reason why we care so much is because we are the customer. We are the kids in the classroom that we're learning about robotics, learning about coding. And I suppose we're impassioned, I certainly am, to deliver constantly on our mission.
Absolutely.
Which is to
certainly
empower as many kids to engage with coding in a playful, engaging, and fun way, and to do that using Robotify. So thanks very much for listening to our story. It's been a pleasure, and enjoy the talks over the coming hours, and enjoy.
Thank you very much.